but he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but now this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win.
If politics teaches us anything, it's that sometimes the fiercest blows come not from rivals, but from those who once stood beside you. Gavin Newsom learned that lesson in a harsh way. When someone like Bill Maher, who had openly praised him before, turns critical, it signals real trouble for his standing. And this wasn't just a passing jab. Maher took to national television and shredded the California governor's carefully built image. The criticism didn't stop at policies either. Maher went further, calling into question Newsom's goals, tarnishing his character, and reducing years of political effort into a single dismissive remark. And what made it sting even more? Maher delivered it with the kind of authority that made it sound like the final word.
Newsom is the governor of California, home to 12% of all Americans and 50% of all Mexicans. On the upside, Newsom is the only governor, with the possible exception of Kristi Noem, who looks like they could do.
Picture this. Your entire run as governor boiled down to a snarky comment. Well, at least you're good looking. That's the line Bill Maher used to sum up Gavin Newsom's legacy. And honestly, it stings because it reflects more truth than Newsom might like to admit. California isn't just another state. It's the wealthiest, most resource-packed, and arguably the most innovative place on the planet. Yet under Newsom's watch, it has become a showcase of everything critics dislike about progressive leadership. Homelessness continues to spiral, crime keeps climbing, businesses are packing up and leaving, and taxes stretch budgets to the breaking point. And what stands out as his signature accomplishment? Not solving any of those crises, but introducing gender-neutral toy aisles. You couldn't script that if you tried. This is exactly where Maher's critique hit hardest. He compared Newsom's role as governor to Britney Spears' conservatorship, an analogy that reduced California's top office to something more like babysitting than actual leadership. The subtext was clear. Newsom may hold the title, but real control and progress, that's another story.
I don't want to say he really wants to be the guy who steps in if the current nominee goes down, but he gets an alert on his phone every time Biden can't think of a word. The downside is that governor of California is kind of like being conservator for Britney Spears.
What's unfolding in California feels like an endless crisis that no one wants to claim responsibility for. And Maher's jab wasn't just for laughs, it landed like a full-on body slam. Because when governing one of the richest states in the world starts to look like managing a celebrity meltdown, something is deeply wrong. Maher wasn't tossing out a random joke. He was putting words to what many Californians already see every day. Take homelessness, for example. The state has practically rolled out the welcome mat, offering services without strict rules and turning a blind eye to street encampments. The result? Living on the sidewalks has become an option, not a last resort. Instead of taking a firm, realistic approach, Newsom's policies turned entire neighborhoods into sprawling outdoor shelters and busy streets into tent cities. And the intention may have been compassion, but what people are left with is chaos dressed up as kindness. And that's exactly the contradiction Maher was shining a light on.
Attack him on California's homeless problem, but there's a response to that. The homeless can live anywhere, but they choose California.
The same pattern shows up in California's crime problem. Instead of being a safe haven for its residents, the state has become a playground for offenders. Break into a store, and the most you'll face is a slap on the wrist. Steal goods worth thousands, and chances are you'll be back on the streets the same day. That isn't justice. It's chaos wearing the mask of progress. And while everyday people deal with rising crime, unsafe neighborhoods, and falling quality of life, leaders like Gavin Newsom pat themselves on the back for their so-called compassion. But the story doesn't end there. It gets worse. Beyond homelessness and lawlessness, California is bleeding talent and families at an astonishing pace. Well-known figures, major companies, and countless middle-class households are heading for the exits. And they're not drifting out slowly, they're running. Elon Musk packed up, Joe Rogan moved on, businesses shuttered. Why? because Newsom's economic playbook has made the state nearly impossible to live in unless you're among the elite. Crushing taxes, endless regulations, and sky-high living costs have driven out the very people who once built California's strength. This is the great tragedy. California has everything: wealth, stunning landscapes, Hollywood, Silicon Valley. It should stand as America's shining example of success. Instead, it's become a warning sign of what happens when flashy speeches replace real leadership. And now Bill Maher, of all people, has said what millions of Californians have been thinking. Gavin Newsom is heavy on image and light on substance. That's his fatal flaw.
First, the knock on Gavin has always been that he's slick. Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with that. I noticed slick is something no one has been accusing Biden of lately. Do you want good at talking or don't you? Newsom is the best communicator in the party with a history of standing up to bullies, and his name lends itself to the best slogan since I Like Ike. I'm having Gavin.
Oh, he's clever, he's charming, he's polished to perfection. At times, Gavin Newsom has felt less like a governor and more like a walking advertisement. And for a while, that image worked. He could command a crowd, deliver speeches that sounded straight out of Hollywood, and flash a smile to escape tough situations. But here's the problem. Style doesn't solve substance. You can't build affordable housing with charm. Crime doesn't vanish because of lofty rhetoric. And no business stays in a state simply because its leader looks the part. The truth is, charisma and clever spin aren't enough to govern anymore. And guess who's catching on? Voters. Not just conservatives, but Democrats too. Even Bill Maher pointed out that Newsom is far too progressive to win a national election. A sentiment echoed by hosts on progressive African-American-owned radio stations. That's not Republican critics talking. That's coming straight from within Newsom's own political circle.
On KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, "Who do you want to run for president?" I mentioned, "I think you'd be good at the job." Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but it doesn't.
You know you're in trouble when even your strongest supporters start saying you're unelectable. And that's exactly the problem Gavin Newsom faces. He knows it too. That's why he's constantly positioning himself as the backup plan if President Biden steps aside. He can deny it all he wants, but the ambition is obvious still. Deep down, he has to recognize the uncomfortable truth. If he can't get California under control, why should anyone believe he can run the entire country? And then there's the woke showcase that pushes people away even further. This is where Newsom really loses the crowd. Bill Maher nailed it when he mocked California's law forcing large toy retailers to create gender-neutral aisles. That's the kind of headline-grabbing policy that makes Newsom look more like a performer than a problem solver.
The swing states, there's only 8 of them.
Right. Well, California's an interesting case study, isn't it? It's the size of 21 state populations combined.
Yeah.
2/3 of the state is very deeply red. We don't need to be lectured on rural politics or border issues. I mean, in so many ways, these are familiar issues, and the issues in the heartland of the United States are very much a part and parcel of the work we're doing in this state. But look, I understand this notion that you're from the coast, you don't understand those things. You can't talk the language. You're not able to communicate. You're not able to actually encourage and find that common ground.
It's stuff like there's a new law in this. I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Homelessness is climbing, crime is spreading, and families are struggling just to cover rent. Yet California's government is busy policing toy aisles. Instead of solving real problems, leaders like Gavin Newsom seem more interested in making symbolic political gestures. And the result? Policies that feel out of touch, tone deaf, and, frankly, laughable. Think about it. Small businesses are collapsing under heavy taxes and endless regulations. Neighborhoods are becoming less safe, and middle-class families are being squeezed tighter every year. And what's presented as one of Newsom's signature contributions, making sure Barbie and Hot Wheels sit on the same shelf. That's not leadership. That's trading real solutions for empty gestures, performing for applause while the core issues go unaddressed. And it's exactly why so many people across the country see Newsom as the face of politics gone wrong.
Much government there.
Look, That's an interesting one because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they're the ones making a case for that. They were making a case they're already moving in that direction.
Why did you make a law about them?
Well, but they've supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support from the industry itself. But I understand how that's exploited, and good people can disagree. But that's not something we woke up and said, this is a top priority for the state, when we know the top priorities are homelessness, housing, the issues of crime, quality of life, and issues related to regulation and taxes, which are all top.
And then there's the water crisis, one so alarming it would be comical if it weren't so devastating. Agriculture guzzles more than 80% of California's water, and almonds are a prime example of the problem. Just to grow a single pound of them, you need nearly 1,900 gallons of water. 1,900. That's an ocean for a snack food.
Good job this year making it rain.
You're welcome.
That
was my legislative priority.
It was looking bad there for a while, and we still don't have enough water in the Colorado River and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then whenever I read 80% of the water goes to agriculture. Almonds.
Right.
No one ever asked you about almonds? Oh, I'm going to ask you about almonds.
And then, of course, comes the water situation. Sure, California got some rain this year. Congratulations, problem solved, right? If only it were that simple. The Colorado River is still running low, and the crisis hasn't gone anywhere. Here's the kicker. Agriculture consumes about 80% of the state's water. And what soaks up a huge portion of that? Almonds. Yes, almonds. A single pound of them takes around 900 gallons of water to grow. Nobody asked for almonds to be the star of the water debate, but somehow they are.
We grow a boatload of almonds.
I'm well aware.
You know what? You know how much water it takes?
80 gallons.
1,900 gallons to grow a pound of almonds. Come on, man. Take on big almonds.
Take on big almonds.
I mean, it's not like we don't have the water.
You're right about it. It's not that we don't have the water. That said, the last couple of years were tough. I mean, it's also where the water's falling and we're not capturing it. But we're not capturing those extreme years with these atmospheric rivers. Wets are getting a lot wetter, dry's drier, hot's getting a lot hotter. And so we've got to modernize our conveyance system. We've got to modernize our storage, not just above ground, but below ground. And so that's a big part of our focus and frame, including desalinization plants. We have 20 projects just on desal that we're working on today. So we put out a detailed water strategy that includes, by the way, getting that Delta conveyance project back up and operational. It includes the first above ground off stream storage facility in half a century in the state, which, by the way, is being aided by a regulatory package I pushed forward to reduce red tape in the state of.
Meanwhile, everyday Californians are told to live like the apocalypse is around the corner. Shorter showers, dry lawns, and strict water rations. Yet at the very same time, corporate farms are burning through billions of gallons to grow nuts. The contradiction is staggering. And when Newsom is pressed on the issue, out comes another polished speech about climate change and future storage projects. In plain terms, that means less accountability and more empty talk.
You're good at this.
Well,
I'm telling you, you're good at this job. I feel like the last couple of years you've purposely picked this fight with the red states. I mean,
Yes.
but I don't want to live in the Civil War.
I agree with that.
You know what?
Well,
but you seem like you purposely want to set up this dichotomy between, this is a blue state and that's a red state.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in that country.
love
I
it.
like Florida.
I'm with you. And by the way, I like Florida as well. I like all these states. I completely agree. I don't want to have a state of mind that's a constant fight or flight. We've gone through so many. We've been polarized and traumatized. It's been a tough 5-6 years across the globe, not just in this country. That said, I'm not going to sit back and watch. And you made the point just a moment ago in your monologue. You got folks out there trying to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. America in reverse, rolling back voting rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, not just access to abortion, but.
And that's really the heart of the issue. Gavin Newsom is skilled at looking busy without actually doing much. He knows all the buzzwords. He can deliver speeches that sound uplifting, and he can project confidence that change is just around the corner. But take a real look at California. Are things actually improving or getting worse? Words don't fix broken systems. Action does. And Newsom hasn't delivered. This is where the conversation takes a darker turn. Some people see him as a future presidential contender. Let that sink in. The governor who turned California into a cautionary tale now wants to apply the same formula nationwide. If California is the model, America better brace itself because that blueprint isn't leading to success. It's already crumbling. California under Gavin Newsom isn't the shining model it should be. Instead, it has become a warning sign of what happens when flashy speeches, symbolic policies, and broken promises replace real solutions. Homelessness continues to grow. Crime is climbing, businesses are leaving in droves, and ordinary families are being crushed by taxes and soaring costs. Yet what does Newsom highlight? Gender-neutral toy aisles and polished sound bites that win headlines but solve nothing. Bill Maher, once an admirer, now openly mocks this approach, and that should make people stop and think. Maher compared Newsom's governorship to Britney Spears' conservatorship, reducing years of political branding to a punchline. He also noted that Newsom is all presentation, a man who looks sharp, speaks well, and carries himself like a Hollywood actor. But underneath, there's no substance. And that matters, because America isn't asking for more speeches, it's begging for answers. The irony is striking. California is the wealthiest, most resource-rich, and most creative state in the country. It should be leading the way with opportunity and innovation. Instead, it's drowning in mismanagement. Families ration water while corporate farms burn billions of gallons growing almonds. Neighborhoods turn into tent cities while crime goes unchecked. This is what leadership looks like under Newsom, and it's why Maher's critique resonated so strongly. So here's the bigger question. If this is what Newsom has done to California, what would happen if he brought the same model to the White House? Do Americans really want to turn the nation into a larger version of a failing state? Even his own allies doubt he can win nationally. Maybe that's the wake-up call Democrats need, because America doesn't need another illusion in a designer suit. It needs results.